we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Transform Your Relationships with Laura Rubinstein, me, and Dr. Rhoberta Shaler.
That would be me.
Yeah, so thanks. We are here on, as you were just saying, Rhoberta, International Women's Day. You were going to tell a little story.
Well, I was just going to say I remember the first time that we ever celebrated International Women's Day. And it was such a big deal. And we're all so happy to celebrate so thoroughly. And now I'm not so sure that people celebrate it as much.
Yeah, I celebrated it once. How long ago did we start it?
Oh, golly, 25 years ago.
Okay. Well, I think it comes in waves and surges, and there are many, many celebrations today for women. But, I think we also have a challenge as well, because not all women are treated the same way around the world. Not all women are viewed the same way around the world. And even in, as advanced, so to speak, a country as we live in the Western world, we still are facing issues as women of equality, of discrimination. You name it. I'm not here. We're not here to be victims. I want to make a sense.
No, and today we're talking about fear of conflict, and you think about how many people are living in fear of conflict that they can't have control over it. I mean, governments and all kinds of things happening, and then the oppression of women. We're here today to talk about what we can do to overcome our fear of conflict.
Yes, amen to that. Why is it important to do that? Let's talk about that.
Oh, well, my opinion is that you live in fear of any kind. We want to take care of that. I mean, who wants to live in fear they don't have to live in? Yes. And when you have insights and skills and strategies about what's going on with you, of creating that fear, where you learn to have that fear, and then you overcome that, then you can become both competent and confident.
Yeah, and Marie's making a good point here. Conflict, confrontation, fear of being stuck or criticized. There's all kinds of fears. We live with it every day. So here's the thing I want to say about fear. Fear is your friend. It's not the foe. It gives you information about yourself. And I have a motto I love to say, if you're not in physical, don't let fear run your life. Okay? Right. Unless you're in physical danger, then run for your life. Okay.
Well, that's so true, because our fears are usually founded very early in life, or else we've had an event or something that has caused it. And taking the time to go back and find the home of those fears, the seed of those fears, is really a worthwhile exercise. I was working with a client yesterday, and he has children, he has a very successful business or two, and his relationship isn't working. Why isn't it working? His response to conflict and her response to conflict just create a conflagration every time they try to deal with something. So then they've pushed everything under the rug for so long that now when they do try to deal with it, it's like lighting a match to a bonfire 20 feet high. And when he had the wisdom to come, and I mean that because some wise place within him said, I can't fix this myself. I just can't do it. And when we started to uncover where that all was, I mean, here's a really successful man who says, my goodness, nobody ever touched that part or made that connection for me before. All of a sudden, I see it. I can see why I feel it. So when we have fears, we want to explore, not just shut them down and try and cover them up, but explore, where did I get that? How did it serve me at that time? Is it serving me now? And what can I do so that it will? So important.
Yeah, I want to have everyone be able to use fear to their advantage instead of shoving it under the rug and causing explosions and patterns that cause a lot of dysfunction, a lot of heartache unnecessarily, if we just embrace that fear. And I think And one of the things when I did a lot of work on fear on myself was, yeah, why do we even have this fear? Where is that coming from?
Yeah. And that's exactly what this fellow was uncovering. Imagine that, you know, he now has fear of conflict because when he opens his mouth with his wife, it goes nowhere good. But where the conflict really was that he is more successful than his father. There were horrible things going on at home. As you know, Laura, my new ebook series is coming out in 2 weeks, and it's called Escaping the Hijackal Trap, the definitive guide to dealing with chronically difficult people.
Yay!
Yay! And chronically difficult people are much more than difficult people. And this fellow was actually living with a chronically difficult person as a mom. And if you had that experience, your experience of conflict and success and being able to separate from getting your needs met at home so you still thrive and live and survive, to getting out in the world and having a new experience, a different experience. Because we just bring the old experience with us because we think that's the thing, but it isn't. You know, there's way more than that.
Mm-hmm. And reacting out of the past is keeping us stuck a lot of times, but we can't help it because we've had consequences and then we're afraid of repeating them. And a lot of times I find that fear is an illusion. Like we make up that we're going to, like subconsciously even, going to die as a result of the fear, right?
Yes.
Of whatever we're afraid of. So, like I said, don't let fear run your life unless you're in physical danger. Then Marie, whatever you're talking about in terms of the incident that happened, you know, we have to run for our life. We do need protection. And it's really a shame that there are people out there causing fear in people. And go ahead, you're going to say something about that?
Well, it could be, you know, something large like you're talking about. But more importantly, we need to look at our fears about just being in the world. You know, maybe we have a fear of speaking out for ourselves. Maybe we have a fear that if I say what's true for me, somebody will go away. They won't like it and they'll leave me. And my fear of being left is greater than my fear of being authentic. And those are important things that we have to look at because that's keeping you from fully expressing who you are. And that's important. Right? Yeah. That's what you're here for. You know, I often say to people, think about the magical aspect of how you happen to have a life. You know, millions of sperm, one little egg. How come you? Right? You've got the opportunity of a lifetime. So be fully expressing, be fully present, be fully here. And you can't do that if you don't look at your fears.
Yeah. If you just are run by them. Like, oh my God, I can't do that. Somebody will think a different way. Somebody will behave a different way. It's not about controlling other people. We have to just drop that. There's no such thing as that. The only person you can control is yourself. And the fear is paralyzing. But you know what? I learned about fear a long time ago. It's a part of oneself, right? And it loves you. My fear loves me very, very much, to the point that it's gripping me. It's the only mechanism it has to protect me. That's why I say you have to friend your fear, and say and treat it like a little 5-year-old that is afraid. A part of you, not your entirety, right? It is this part of you that needs to be nurtured, soothed, and then make an adult choice about. Not let the 5-year-old make the choice.
Well, that's true. And that's exactly what we were speaking about just a few minutes ago, where I was, is these things get implanted within us. Just think about your life for a minute, every one of us. We came into this life with an undeveloped brain where it grows until we're 25 years old. We don't have a language that has really any meaning until we're 6 or 7 years old. We can name things and we can say short sentences, but we don't have prefrontal lobe development, so we don't know cause and effect or rational linear thinking. And think how much got put into our little selves before the age of 6 that we just took on with that undeveloped brain, taking everything in as though it's all focused on us. All that we saw and heard and tasted and touched and smelled. And that's the basis that we go into life with after that age.
Yeah.
And if we don't go back and look at these things and the things that happen to us, up until we're 18 or so, if we don't go back and look at them when something shows up, like I'm afraid of something or I'm holding myself back, then we miss the opportunity of being fully expressing.
Right. Because we're still being run by that fear. So it's ever so important to address that. There's quite a brain, even probably a neurochemical shift that happens when we say, oh my gosh, my fear isn't right. It isn't the truth. That was my 5-year-old truth. But it's not my adult truth anymore.
And it may have kept you safe at 5 years old.
Yes.
If you learn that you just don't answer back, you never say anything when you're 5 years old, and you're 35 years old and you're still not saying anything, good thing to look at. Like you say, it kept the 5-year-old safe so that the giants would still take care of it in some kind of manner. But at 35, if we're not speaking up and speaking out, maybe we don't have good communication skills. Maybe that needs to be learned. That's often the case. I think of one client who came and said, how long is it natural for somebody to give you the silent treatment? And I said to him, how long has your wife not been speaking to you? And he said, well, sometimes it goes 6 weeks at a time. And I said, well, you have 2 problems there. First of all, she's afraid of having the conversation. Secondly, she may not feel she has the skills to match yours. And so she just goes into shutdown. So she has a fear of conflict. Somewhere it didn't work for her. So it's really important for us to look at what's possible for us. Fresh today, if we have a fear that's running us.
Yes. Being able to, there's skill involved, like you say. So first you look at the fear, you understand what it is, understand it's not the truth, then looking at what you want really in your heart of hearts. Because I believe that fear is a manifestation of what you truly want. It just isn't a really good way to get there.
In fact, it may be the very thing that's blocking you from getting there.
Right. It wants to protect your heart.
Served a purpose.
Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. It served a purpose at one point, and now it's actually in your way.
Yeah. And acknowledging that it takes courage. You have to actually risk something to face your fears, and then to do feel the fear and do it anyway. I love that book, by the way. There's a great book out there. Gave me a lot of insight into that. That's a good beginner guide of where to start of, facing that fear and how it's okay to have fear. It's not like it ever goes away 100%. It might, but it may not. And that's okay. That's your part of you that just is loving you.
Well, and that's the part of you that says, okay, here's a safety point for you personally. And it's just something to sit down and say, okay, but is it right in this circumstance? Do I have any evidence in reality that I need to be fearful here? And then it becomes a growth point. So why don't people speak up? Well, they've learned somewhere along the way that if you speak up, you risk something. And what is risk really about? It's saying, I'm going to stand fully in my truth. I talk a lot, Laura, about the 7 inalienable rights that a healthy person develops over the first 20 years of their lives. Many of us don't have that. We have excesses and deficiencies in those rights. But the most fundamental and first right is the right to be here. To really feel like we have the right to be here. And if we don't have that right, we're not going to speak up. Right? So if we've been in circumstances where someone has said, if I want some music from you, I'll push the button, or came from a home where children should be seen and not heard, we're already at a disadvantage there, right?
Totally.
Because we think that we don't have the right to speak up, and if we do, something awful might happen. It's a risk.
Right. It's, being able to address one's fears is empowering. And I love these inalienable rights you mentioned. And it's a great day. I just want to acknowledge again, it's International Women's Day. And, facing our fears, I mean, a lot of people keep people oppressed in the world by, creating fear. And one way to take a stand is to face one's fear. And it doesn't mean you don't feel it. It doesn't mean it goes away 100%, but it does mean you have more freedom, like you were saying, and better relationships. And that's what we're all about here. And that goes for being on social media too, right? There's a lot of fear.
And you have to be careful there.
Absolutely.
It's wise to be cautious.
Yep. It's wise to be cautious, and exactly, and putting yourself out there when it's safe. I think it was last time when we did the all about love, that the feminine needs to feel safe to really express herself. So what do you need to feel safe is important to know very, 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 very clearly. If you're not with somebody safe, that's the time to run, in my opinion. Okay. Safe emotionally, safe physically, and then, we should really do that. Unlike what Art's saying. Do you want to go over those 7 rights?
Well, I can. I was just going to.
We did it in a previous blab too. I know.
Yeah, I just there. You can read them on my blog. I just put the link in there. But what the 7 rights are is the right to be here and take up space, the right to feel, the right to act, the right to love, the right to speak, the right to see, and the right to think. And they're not as simple as they sound when I say them in that way, because they are very, very profound rights. And good for you. You
for those that need visual.
Yeah, but I talk about them a lot more on one of my blogs there that I can't get that link for you right at the moment, but just go to the blog and you'll see it. At the bottom of that homepage there, you'll see the blog, and there's a little line that says earlier blogs. You'll find it there. But, if you don't have that right, say you don't have the right to speak, which is a higher level because they go from the bottom up, actually, opposite to the way you have them. The most basic right is to be, and the last right is to think. But if you don't have the right to speak, and you trace it back, you realize that maybe you don't have the right to feel. So if you don't have the right to feel, why would you speak up, right? Or you don't have the right to be, so you think no one would care if you had anything to say about anything anyway, so you don't speak up. So you see how they're all interacted. And depending on our formative years, we're going to have situations where we have excesses and we have deficiencies in those rights, because the people who raised us only could give us the gifts they had. If they didn't have something within their makeup, within their emotional selves, they couldn't give it to us. So we have the opportunity then, and I do a 7-week program on this. It begins with a free webinar. And if you're interested in that, just subscribe to my newsletter when you're at forrelationshiphelp.com. And we walk through each one of them so that you have some exercise and things to find out. Because missing any one of those 7 rights will cause you to have some fear. And if you have some fear, you're probably not going to be wanting to put yourself out there. Therefore, you're going to have a fear of conflict.
So it sounds like you're talking about deserving when we talk about your list, not deserving to feel, not deserving to, like, if you have these rights, you don't know you have these rights, you feel you're not deserving them. Is that right?
No. These are things that go along with the developmental stages that we look at. Piaget, we look at Erikson, we look at Jung, we look at all these different kinds of emotional, physical, intellectual growth. And if they don't come in at the times of our brain development and things, It's not about deserving, it's about having.
Mm.
Like, they need to be there. They need to be installed,
Okay.
if you like. And if someone couldn't install those programs
That's
for us,
awesome.
then a really wise thing to do is to go back and install them for yourself and get some help around that.
I love
Because
that.
your life changes so completely when you
Okay,
do.
so being an engineer, I love that analogy of installing the rights into one's psyche, and having the experience of wanting that, one of these, like I have the right to love and to be loved and to feel love. And it's so powerful. This list is so amazing. Everyone sign up for her blog, get on that course. I mean, like gold. So,
Well, I can tell you that working it through, even personally, a long time ago when this all came up, but what a difference. My parents couldn't give me
right,
that stuff. They didn't
right.
have it, right? They just didn't have it. So where was I to get it from? Well, I had to do the work and go within and do what I needed to do. And the freedom and the joy and the expansiveness and the lightness that comes from according yourself those rights is so worth the
And the
journey.
clarity.
Truly worth the
The
journey.
clarity, the peace, and the ease that comes from life when you're clear on who you are, what your fears are, that you deserve, that you have these things, I guess, these rights. I love that. By the way, my website is transformtoday.com as well. I do talk more on the business side of things, although mindset is a huge part of business. So, and I am a certified hypnotherapist as well. And that's why I created my business, Transform Today. It's about, what do you want in the world? Why do you want to overcome it? And let's have a lot more freedom and a lot more contribution and make this world a better place. So let's talk about how to overcome this. We've talked about um, the fear of conflict, and we've talked about facing our fears. So how are we going to overcome the fear of conflict? We're going to take on our rights. We're going to do work there. What else are we going to do?
We'll get some communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the biggest one well, let me tell you two things. I've said this before on our blog. If you were in my office, which you've been many times, Laura, in my consulting room on the wall is the biggest thing I can teach anybody. And what it says there is, the truth is what you do. So make sure that you're living in alignment with your values. Don't say something and not do it, because I always tell people, believe people's behavior. Your behavior is your belief, no matter what you say. But when you come to conflict, the thing is, you need to have communication skills that allow it. So one big thing that I love is to learn and teach skills for people to be totally kind and totally honest at the same time. One of the things we don't do is speak up when there's a conflict, because we think we're going to get angry or we're only going to be unkind. But to learn communication skills so you can be totally kind and totally honest at the same time gives you a great sense of confidence that I can engage in this conversation.
One of the feminine power cards we talked about, or we talked about the feminine power cards last time, but one of them is tell the truth without harming anyone. So a great question to start developing that skill is to ask yourself, how can I tell, well, what am I feeling? First of all, you have to know what you're feeling. And then how can I tell the truth without it hurting anyone? And as you either write it out or speak it out or think it to yourself, how would you say this? If it sounds like you're lashing out or you're reacting or there's some strong emotional energy other than love coming through, you've got some more skills to develop. How do you transform this energy of frustration, anger, fear, whatever it is, to love in your communication?
Okay, here's the big key from my end of this
Drum
conversation.
roll, please.
Yes. Whenever you have something to say that falls into this category, take the word you out of it.
Oh, how can you do that? Oh,
Talk about yourself. I'm feeling disrespected. I find I have a lot of anxiety when that conversation topic comes up. I would really like to solve this problem, and I'm not sure I know how. Instead of saying, wow, every time I go to talk to you, it's just such a mess, and you're going to yell at me and do all of this. Own what's going on for you. Take the word I out of the conflict. That's big. As if you've got something to say, don't start it off with, well, you, because that puts your back to the wall immediately and accelerates the anxiety in the conversation, and it's not going to go as well as it could because that's what you started it with. So take that out. When I wrote Kaizen for Couples, Smart Steps to Save, Sustain, and Strengthen Your Relationship, I offered people the technique that I've developed over many years working with couples. It's called the Personal Weather Report. There are 2 chapters in there, how to do it well. And most people say, oh, that sounds so simple. Yeah, it is simple and it's not easy. So please have a look there. If you have difficulty starting a conversation that goes in the direction you'd like it to go towards resolution, use that technique.
And we've talked about that on some of our early blabs as well. So, if you're enjoying this and you want more, watch all of our blabs. Come to our websites. forrelationshiphelp.com is Rhoberta's, and transformtoday.com is mine. And if you want those feminine power cards, by the way, they're at femininepowercards.com.
Strangely enough.
What'd you say?
Strangely enough.
It's International Women's Day, so we love that we're talking about a conversation that empowers all, including women. And I have all these wonderful little, I love my little things here, by the way. I wanted to mention your book coming out. You mentioned at the beginning, Escaping the Hijackal Trap. And it's no S, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I'm seeing it backwards. I hope you all see it forwards. Now that I'm thinking about it, that's great. So we are excited, and we are going to continue this conversation of, conflict and resolution. And in fact, next time we're going to talk about how to be assertive, not aggressive. Going into a little more deeply, how do we take that you out of the conversation and feel empowered and loving to have conversations that make a difference. I know that when I was single, I did a lot of interviews of couples and I got referred to couples who, by their community, said they had great relationships. And I always ask, what piece of advice do you have, or what do you think sustained your relationship? And it was exactly what you said, Rhoberta. It was kindness, being kind. Like the couples who I interviewed who acknowledged themselves had a great relationship and their community, they always use that word, kindness.
I think that's true. And here's a big question for those of you who are in a relationship. Never treat your partner in any way less than you would treat the checkout person in the grocery store. Never speak to them in a way that you would not use speaking out in the world. And yet, that's one of the things that we get sloppy and lazy about. And we have this notion in our culture that you can let your hair down and let it all hang out at home. The very place where you say you love them the most, your best skills should be on display.
It's a great, rigorous practice that will serve your relationship well. And thank you for the reminder.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the reminder. And so join us in 2 weeks for our topic on assertiveness and what is that, right? And how does it differ from aggressiveness? Oh, this is going to be good.
Absolutely. Juicy conversation.
Props up. All right.
Enjoy International Women's Day and every day, Laura and everyone. And I look forward to talking with you soon and with you, Laura, in 2 weeks.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.